At Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too, because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.
Good morning, everyone. I am meteorologist Mike Krueger. Thank you for joining us here this morning on Coffee with Krueger every weekday morning at 6:30. There you can see the batch of rain that moved in. Now, yesterday afternoon, it moved into the coast, and this line of rain is the source of moisture. It is the atmospheric river that we've been talking about, and it is aimed right at the valley. Now, the forecast models yesterday, if you watch my evening update, it was showing that most of the rain at this point would be north of the Chico area. But Chico, Willows, Oroville seeing some of that rain. And then it works its way northward to the north end of the valley. Redding seeing some of those showers as well. Now you can see it's not like a widespread rainfall. It's kind of off and on rain here. This line that you're seeing here will be pushing northward throughout the morning hours and through the afternoon. And that means rain will be subsiding here and kind of breaking apart, working its way northward. So Chico seeing drier conditions first, and then eventually probably by around midday, early afternoon, Redding will see some drier conditions as well. So that's kind of what's going on there with the radar right now. We take a look at your weather headlines, and you can see it's going to be a cooler and kind of an unsettled start to the week. Really, for the rest of the week, let's just put it that way. We do expect to see some heavier rain, gusty winds working its way into the forecast as well. And it looks like overall, those winds are going to be strongest as we go into tonight and even into tomorrow. But there you can see potential for flooding, mudslides, debris flows. Now, it's important that you understand not everyone is going to see flooding. Not everyone's going to see the potential for mudslides. It just depends on where you are. See, things get tricky around here, folks. It was really frustrating because I had posted some things on Facebook yesterday, and especially during these types of storms, it gets out to more people, which is great. That means more people are discovering weather NorCal, and it's fantastic. But also, when more people are discovering it, you get more trolls. You got people saying, oh, it's not going to be that bad of a storm. We're only going to get 1 to 2 inches of rain in the valley. Yes, but I never said that we're going to see flooding in the valley, did I? I never said that, even in the post. But people read into it, and they think it's all drama, and they think it's all just kind of overdoing it. That's the problem, and that's what frustrates me, is it's hard to report the weather when there's so much drama out there, and I'm trying to really rein that all in. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Quieter by Friday and into the weekend. So this cooler and unsettled weather pattern is going to move on out of here. Let's get into your Krueger's Quickcast, shall we? Now, this is just a quick look at the forecast for today. We're not going to go into a whole lot of detail. That is where the deeper dive forecast comes in a little bit later. All right, so right now, you'll notice the temperatures aren't too terribly cold out there. 40s in the mountains as well as 50s, and mid-50s on average for the valley, mid-50s for the coast. Now this morning, where we're seeing the bulk of the showers is in the valley, Trinity County, even parts of the north coast. Siskiyou County, Modoc County, seeing some of that, but the eastern mountains should start to see some drier weather as we go through the morning hours. So you can see that cold front, you see how it just pretty much weakened. It fizzled out by the time it moved over us, but we still had that tap of moisture. The storm off to our west, you can see that cold front there. That one over the Gulf of Alaska is going to pack a bigger punch. That's the one that's going to give us heavier rainfall, gusty winds, and thunderstorms as well. So there you can see that atmospheric river. You can clearly see the transport of that moisture working its way. And this is all moving, the stream of moisture itself moving from southwest to northeast. But what you're going to start to notice happen as we go through the morning hours, watch what happens with that stream of moisture. You see how it kind of pivots northward. So by midday, I still think Redding will see some showers, but places like Red Bluff, Corning, Chico, Willows, all mainly dry, as well as Lassen and Plumas counties. And you can see also some of the heavier rainfall that we're seeing to the north and west. All right, then we go into the afternoon and see how it's all staying to the north and west. So when we talk about the potential for flooding, it's these areas that you see right here, which would also include, by the way, parts of Trinity County. That's because This stream of moisture and this steady rainfall that we're going to see out of this is going to be really confined to these areas right here. But eventually, by the time we get into tonight, because you see how it's just not changing much, right? But by tonight, we're going to see another cold front pass through. This is when we're going to really see some of the heaviest amounts of rainfall. And then it will kind of turn into scattered showers behind that through most of the day on Wednesday. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. The winds right now, a little gusty for some of the higher elevations, some of those mountain ridge tops. But when we look at the winds later on today, they're going to progressively get stronger, I'd say, for the North Coast and Siskiyou County, and even some of the mountain ridge tops east of the valley. You see gusts upwards of 40, even 50 miles per hour already at this point. But again, that's mainly for the mountain ridge tops. Then going into tonight, the North Coast seeing some of those strong winds, and then the valley will also see those winds begin to pick up here in the overnight hours. So rainfall chances are going to be strongest today, tomorrow, decreasing chances, especially by the end of the week. And I'm not expecting any rainfall by Saturday, Sunday, or Monday of next week, at least for the valley, and really everyone else. So looking at today, we're going to start off with those showers for everyone in the valley. And then progressively through the morning, the chances for showers decrease, working southward to northward. So Redding midday still may be a chance for showers, but by afternoon, Redding most likely dry. And everyone else south of Redding as well, right? Not to mention Lassen and Plumas counties and east of the valley as well. With most of the rain through the day, Trinity County, Humboldt County, eventually Del Norte, and even western Siskiyou County as well. All right, so that's what it looks like for today. How about tonight? Well, that's where we see the rain. But temperatures, again, because we're not going to see much clearing, it's going to make for a fairly mild night. Temperatures mainly in the 40s for most of the higher elevations, low to mid 50s for the valley, and low 50s for the coast. And that means also, by the way, fairly high snow levels. So looking at your 7-day forecast for the valley, showers, thunderstorms possible on Wednesday. Now, take note. Notice the lightning strikes are in Redding, maybe even as far south as Red Bluff. But look at Chico. There's a very good chance that Chico may make it through the day on Wednesday without seeing much in the way of rain, if any. And that's why I've just put that chance in there. And then Thursday, I think it's going to start off dry for everyone in the valley, but by the afternoon, chances for rain increase. Then Friday, mainly dry, and dry through the weekend and early next week. You'll also notice for the weekend, it's getting warmer, low 70s. For the coast, you're pretty much rainy all day. Now, you'll notice Del Norte, even northern Humboldt, not much rain now, at least this morning, but that'll pick up later this morning. And then your rain all day. Thunderstorms are a very good possibility. Even today, by the way, for parts of the coast. And then going into your Wednesday, that chance for thunderstorms. And then Thursday, more rain, especially by midday through the afternoon. Friday through the weekend, early next week, we're dry. All right, for Siskiyou, Modoc County, the Eastern Mountains, all right, you're seeing that wet weather. I think for Susanville, Lassen County, you'll dry for most of the afternoon today. Chance for showers and thunderstorms for your Wednesday. Late in the day, really probably, mid-late afternoon, and really not until the late afternoon, I'd say places like Alturas and Susanville may get some of that rain. But again, we'll take a look at that in the deeper dive here in just a bit. By the week, really by Friday through the weekend, we're dry and should be dry even going into Monday of next week. All right, that's a look at your Krueger's Quickcast. Let's kind of transition and kind of talk about some of the cameras out there. You can see it is wet this morning. Look at Lake Oroville, North Forebay. You can see the wet pavement and some of the wet weather that we are seeing out there. You can see the wet roads in Chico. It's going to be a wet commute, so just kind of maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time and give yourself some space between you and the car in front of you, just like I hope most of these people are doing here on Highway 99 at Neal Road, where we've got some of the wet weather there as well. All right, we take you out to Highway 44 at Sundial Bridge Drive. There's the wet weather there. You can clearly see that we've got those wet roads. You've got the overcast skies out there. We're going to take a look at Crescent City this morning. You've got the overcast skies. Look at the pavement. It's actually not very wet. We're not seeing any rain right now in the Crescent City area, but as you start heading southward, better chances. Take a look at this. This is looking out at Elk Country just north of Trinidad. Not raining right now. You can see some of the patchy fog that's kind of developed behind the schoolhouse there. But if you look off in the distance, You're certainly seeing a lot of the overcast skies, but still not much in the way of rain at this point north of Trinidad. All right, let's go ahead and see what it looks like right now in Bald Hill West. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Look at that, kind of the patchy fog. It's already starting to kind of break apart. This is looking down into the Hoopa Valley. But above that, you've got the overcast skies. And, you know, that's not really going to clear out a whole lot today. In fact, eventually those clouds will bring some rain. Looks like we are seeing some rain out towards the Soda Ridge area here. That's looks like, I think that's in Siskiyou County, if I'm not mistaken. Take a look at Fort Jones, and looks like just the mostly cloudy skies, some of that fog that's kind of breaking apart as well, but not much in the way of those low clouds out there. See how some of you going on this morning here. Good morning from Jackie Dixon in Trinidad. Good morning to you, Jackie. So glad you could join us this morning. And we've got Curtis Brown this morning. Say good morning, Mike. We've had very light intermittent rain since last night. There you go. And Jackie, I know, don't let the trolls get to me. I don't. I try not to. But it's frustrating enough that there are a lot of what we call armchair meteorologists out there who use moments like this to gain views, and it's frustrating because then I've got to kind of clean up the mess a little bit. Overcast in Trinidad, had a good bit of rain yesterday evening. Oh, very interesting. Thank you, Jackie. See, that's what I love about what we do here, because I get the reports from you. It gives me a better idea of what's really happening. You know, there's only so much technology can do for me, right? I can look at the radar and see, but the real confirmation is you, the actual human observation of the weather. Nothing will ever top human observation, as far as I'm concerned. That's just the bottom line. So again, that's coming in from Jackie this morning. She said overcast in Trinidad, but a good bit of rain yesterday evening. So I love your reports. I love getting those reports. All right. Let's take a look now at our sponsor of Coffee with Krueger, and that would be Wind River Resort and Casino. At Wind River Resort and Casino, enjoy friendly service, a wide variety of specials and promotions, plus all of your favorite slots and table games.
Frank, come help with the dishes.
What?
The dishes!
I heard it the first time. I just got back from Shasta Hearing Aids, but she doesn't know it yet. What?
Forget it.
So you can see, of course, we are going to be looking at that rain coming in from the west here, and that's essentially what's going to be the main source of this rain coming in over the next few days. But what we're seeing here, temperature-wise, not very cold. As you can see, we're in the low to even mid-50s, even some upper 50s in the valley, 40s for many of the mountains north and east of the valley, otherwise 50s west of the valley, mid-50s for the coast this morning. And again, that's thanks to the overcast skies. So this is looking at the radar from the last 12 hours. And you can really see where most of the rain the last 12 hours has been pointed to. And it's mainly right here, which includes the valley. Some of you seeing some steady light rainfall. This is not a tremendous amount of rain that we're looking at here. But this is a prime example of an atmospheric river. Now, one of the things I also want to reiterate is that atmospheric river is not a storm. Some of the comments I'm seeing on Facebook is, since when did we call storms atmospheric rivers? We don't, and I never have, because atmospheric rivers are not storms. Atmospheric rivers are sources of moisture for storms to tap into. All right, so here you go. There's that flow of moisture. And you can see it's not the strongest right now, but it is bringing in some of that rainfall. Now, this is also kind of a classic atmospheric river because you have that cutoff of where you see dry conditions and then wet weather. Same thing down to the south. So this is that narrow band of moisture that is originating from the subtropics, kind of down in the Hawaii region, right? So that's the first storm coming in. That actually is weakening. And now we're just kind of dealing with that cooler and unstable air and that flow right into Northern California. Now, what's going to happen is this. This storm system right here, this main area of low pressure, this is going to dive down to the south and east throughout the day today. Now, that's important to take note because as that happens, it also has an impact on where that atmospheric river is pointed. So you have the atmospheric river pointed right here, this area of low pressure right here, the storm. As this dives to the south, it's going to pivot this moisture northwestward. And we're going to see that very clearly when we look at this and also Futurecast. All right? So here's the moisture content. There's the atmospheric river right here. Again, not a storm, but a source of moisture coming in from the subtropics and typically a narrow band of moisture, which we clearly have right here. Now, you can see here, this is kind of that main band of moisture aimed right here. That's why we're seeing that rain, where we're seeing it this morning. But remember I was talking about that. As that storm system dives to the south, that takes this and it pivots it to the north. So by later this afternoon, evening, most of the rain will be on the north coast in western Siskiyou County. Everyone else will be dry. So through the morning, from south to north, decreasing showers. And eventually by the afternoon and evening, it's just, again, mainly on the coast. Now look at Wednesday morning. There it is now down to our south. So really the main storm system pushes through late tonight, early tomorrow morning. This is one of those events, you're going to be asleep in bed or you might get woken up. You might get woken up. You might get woken up. The wind might wake you up. Heavy rainfall might wake you up. Maybe some rumbles of thunder might wake you up as well. But as this dives down to the south, we no longer are under the influence of that particular atmospheric river at this point. But it's the colder and unstable air behind it and plenty of moisture left over, which is going to bring us showers and thunderstorms, especially in the mountains, but even parts of the valley could see some of that activity Wednesday afternoon. But look at this. Look at another swath of moisture that's going to be moving in closer by Thursday. That's going to be our next shot for some rain come Thursday afternoon into Thursday night, and then by Friday through the weekend, we're going to see high pressure start to build in, and this is pretty much going to weaken as well, and I don't expect any rain over the weekend or even into early next week. So the other thing that we have to take into account is how strong is that atmospheric river? How strong is that source of moisture? How much of an impact is it going to have on us? It depends on where you are. Here's the coast. The coast and the coastal range typically are impacted the most with these types of events. That's pretty much standard. So when we look at the different categories, 1 through 5, 1 being the weakest, 5 being the strongest, you can see where we are. We're getting, at least on the north coast, between 3 and 4. If you think about the recent ones we've seen over the last few weeks, it's mainly been in the 2 to 3. We really haven't seen it get much stronger than that. So this will probably be one of the stronger ones we've seen so far for the season. Okay, so this is going to be, the timing-wise, is going to be tonight into early tomorrow morning, and then look at what happens as we go through the day on Wednesday. It just drops off a cliff. Because once that moves to our south, we're going to see the less rainfall. But leading up to it, we're seeing some decent rain. You see how it just kind of ticks up and then really peaks tonight, tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, and then it drops off the cliff, and then maybe that little bit of shot of rain coming in on Thursday afternoon in particular. But remember I was saying it's the coast, right? And the coastal range that sees biggest impact. Because look at east of the valley. We're looking the foothills east of the valley, okay? We're nowhere near 4 or 3. We're in the 1 to 2. So significantly smaller impacts. So when I say there's a potential for flooding, that doesn't mean everybody. That means it's going to be for the folks along the coast and also for the mountains west of the valley, as indicated right here. Very clearly you can see the marginal risk for flash flooding. That would be north, west of the valley. Standard, typical with these types of events. Now, you'll notice now we're getting east of the valley, because what happens is you can get that flow up the mountains and we tend to squeeze out more moisture and heavier rainfall to the east. So we've got that potential there. Now you'll notice it also includes just north of Redding, and here's why. Strong south winds. Remember, we talk about these convergence lines, and it's these lines of heavy rainfall that can develop from around Redding northeastward into northeastern Shasta County, around Bernie, even working its way sometimes into Modoc County. These lines, if they stay in one place for a long period of time, can produce flash flooding. And a lot of times they kind of wobble back and forth, and sometimes they can even come farther south down towards Red Bluff as well. So that's something we're going to have to watch with these gusty winds for tomorrow. Then on Thursday, it's mainly just going to be off to the west with that potential for more rain. So we're not expecting a ton of rainfall on Thursday, but with already a saturated ground and heavy amount of rainfall, any rainfall you see on top of that could still produce rises in the creeks and streams, mudslides, debris flows are going to be that concern. And that's why the National Weather Service has issued a flood watch for this evening through Wednesday morning. Southern Trinity, Del Norte, Humboldt counties. But look at off to the east. You're just not seeing as much of that potential. So again, when I say the potential for flash flooding, it's all mainly right here. But again, we also have to remember there's that potential around the Redding area northeastward. Also, maybe some thunderstorms this afternoon. I think better chances though. We don't see this a lot. This is just kind of what we call categorical, right? When you see these light shades of green, it's just basically saying, hey, the potential is there for thunderstorms, but nothing to be terribly concerned about, right? But for us, sometimes, we're still talking heavy rainfall. Sometimes you can get severe thunderstorms, even when we're looking at the lighter shades of green. But the chances for severe thunderstorms increase just a bit as you get into the darker shades of green. Now, when I say severe thunderstorms, what that means is large hail, gusty winds in excess of 45, I think around 45, 50 miles per hour, right? So we could see some of those work their way in. That's tomorrow. And then by Thursday, no more thunderstorms. All right, so let's walk you through the timing of all this. Here we are, this morning at 6 a.m. It's doing an okay job. I want to put more rain here towards Chico, so that's where we're seeing most of that moisture. Now, remember I was saying is that area of low pressure over the Gulf of Alaska shifts to the south. What that's going to do is cause this to do this throughout the morning and afternoon. Watch that. See how it's shifting to the north? There's midday. I still think around midday there might be still some rain around the Redding area. But look where most of it is throughout the day. This is midday. Now watch what happens as we go through the afternoon. Doesn't move much, does it? We see it weaken a little bit. In fact, it even pivots a little bit more to the north and west. So especially northern Humboldt, especially Del Norte, especially western Siskiyou County, you're seeing a lot of that steady rainfall through a good portion of the day today. And at times, as you can see here, it gets a little heavy, but drier conditions for everyone else. Now that cold front I was talking about pushes through. This is going to be the combination of heavy rainfall, gusty winds, gusts 40, 50, 60 miles per hour easily. Then, of course, you're also talking about the chance for some lightning strikes. Now, a lot of times Futurecast tends to what we call over-convect, and I think it might be overdoing it here, but you get the idea. This is going to be the heaviest band of rain that's pushing through midnight tonight, early tomorrow morning, when a lot of you are asleep and in bed. But the gusty winds, the heavy rainfall, the lightning strikes, those all might wake you up in the overnight hours. All right, there it is. So the cold front's pushing through. The winds are really ramping up at this point. But by tomorrow morning, look what's happening. You see how it's becoming less widespread and less organized? Because the main atmospheric river at this point is now shifting down to the south. At this point, as we go through the morning on Wednesday, we're no longer under the influence. We no longer have that tap of moisture from the atmospheric river. But what we do have is a cold and unstable atmosphere and plenty of moisture left over. What that's going to do is give us scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially in the mountains. But look at this line. Remember I was talking about that convergence line? What happens is this. You see, and this has actually been studied across the nation because it's kind of an interesting, unique situation because you have these strong south winds. Here's the mountains, and it butts up against the mountains. So what happens is this. The strong south winds butt up against the mountains, and it forces that air up. When you force air up, that's instability. When we talk about an unstable atmosphere, what does that mean? Rain, right? And thunderstorms. Well, that creates that upward lift and that instability. And so sometimes these lines can develop and stay in one place for several hours. And these, let me tell you, they can bring down some really heavy downpours. And that's why there's that potential for flooding in this area for Wednesday afternoon. But again, the conditions have to be just right. But the model tends to pick up on it pretty good. Now, see what's happening? I mean, we were starting at noon. Here's 6 hours later. That line is still pretty much there. Now, a lot of times as the winds kind of fluctuate a little bit, they get a little stronger, then weaker, then stronger, we tend to see this kind of wobble back and forth a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that, but we've got to watch for that potential throughout the day on Wednesday. And even as we go into Wednesday night, we're still seeing the potential for thunderstorms. But there's the break Thursday morning. There's that next swath of moisture coming in. Midday, it's mainly to the north and west of the valley. Then we see more rainfall through the afternoon for everybody else into the evening. Then by Thursday night, Friday morning, we are done. We've got clearing skies through the day on Friday with drier conditions, and that is going to extend on into the weekend. So after this kind of yucky week, although the rain is nice, but kind of after this yucky week, we're going to get ourselves a very nice weekend. Now, the main thing I want to point out, I'm going to show you two different forecast rainfall total or estimates, right? The main thing I want to point out is the footprint of the rain. Heaviest to the north, west of the valley. No big surprises there. No big surprises here either. Heaviest rainfall will be east of the valley. Rainfall amounts, that's all going to depend. I'd say upwards of 3 to maybe even 5 inches of rain for parts of the north coast, Trinity County, western Siskiyou County, and north of the valley as well. I'd say upwards of about 2 to 4 inches of rain in parts of the foothills east of the valley. And for the valley, anywhere from a half an inch to maybe close to 2 inches. The farther north you go, I think the heavier amount of rainfall that we will see. So again, we talk about flooding, right? The potential for flooding, which is all right here. And if you're sitting in the valley in Chico, you're like, how can it flood in Chico when it's only 8,900 of an inch of rainfall? Because I never said it was going to flood in Chico, did I? All right, so just bear that in mind, all right? Just bear that in mind. Pay attention to where you are and where those impacts are going to be. So again, we take a look at that footprint from another forecast model. This is through Thursday. There it is, north, west of the valley, a little less but heavier than the valley, east of the valley, and then there it is here. Now, this model is a little bit more aggressive on the numbers, so that's why I'm thinking about 3 to 5 inches as a possibility for some of the mountains and west of the valley, but you see how we're seeing less off to the east. Again, pretty standard, pretty typical with these types of storms. All right, let's take a look now at the snow. Just want to show you, and just kind of that we're mainly above 6,000 feet. I mean, even Cedar Pass is having a hard time seeing snow on there. That's a little over 6,000 feet. Eastern Mountains, not much going on there, or even out towards Trinity County. So I think Scott Mountain Pass, for the most part, should be okay during this event. Now, notice, that's not a lot, but that's always a promising to see. I mean, most likely it won't be much, but you get the idea. It would certainly be nice. All right, so high wind warnings, which are the areas in the lighter blue, and then, of course, the blue here is the wind advisory. What does that mean? Well, basically the wind warning is for areas along the coast, some of the higher elevations, central Siskiyou County, where we can see gusts upwards of 60. And in some cases, some of the higher mountain ridge tops, some of those really narrow canyons could be looking at upwards of 70 miles per hour. And then, of course, the valley, eastern mountains, you're talking upwards of around 50 miles per hour. Now, the main event is tonight into Wednesday morning, but even some gusty winds for Wednesday afternoon. So with winds this strong, and I think the best chance for power outages with downed trees, broken tree branches, would be for the North Coast, still North Humboldt County, central Siskiyou County, and looks like even Modoc County. Slimmer chances, but still the potential for some broken tree branches, down trees, the works, right? Even for the valley and surrounding foothills, and for parts of Lassen and eastern Plumas County as well. So just bear that in mind. The winds are going to be strong, and you need to do whatever you can to protect your property from the potential for damage. All right, so let's take a look at that timing of the wind. You see how this afternoon the winds are starting to pick up, especially to the north and west. A little breezy in the valley, and the winds beginning to pick up a little bit in the eastern mountains, but that's not the main event just yet. Now we're going to start to see as we go overnight, look at that. Now we're really seeing those reds and those deep reds pop up. 50, 60 miles per hour. It's getting off of that scale right there. So that's where we expect some of those stronger winds around midnight tonight. Then the cold front's going to be about here by the time we get to 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. So now we see some gusty winds for the valley and even in the eastern mountains. But you see how the winds are subsiding, but still very gusty for the north coast. And then by 6 a.m., now the strongest winds are off to the east. Look at that. You're seeing some pretty strong winds there on that mountain range there, upwards of 60 miles per hour plus. But still, even at 6 a.m., very gusty in the valley. But what we'll notice through the day on Wednesday is the winds will still be gusty, but they're subsiding. They're getting weaker. Thursday, a little breezy with that next little influx of moisture coming in, but overall, calmer winds Thursday, and especially for your Friday. All right, the temperatures are on the cool side through Friday. Low 70s for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then a drop in our temperatures by Wednesday, Thursday. That's the warmer and drier air moving in. So here's your lake levels. Yeah, they dropped a little bit here out towards Lake Oroville, but not much of a drop here for Lake Shasta or Trinity, and still over 100% of that historical average. Now, to add insult to injury with the fact that we're seeing the most amount of rainfall on the coast, there's a coastal flood a coastal flood watch for Wednesday morning. Now, this has nothing to do with the rain itself, because as you know, there is that flood advisory for this area. But to add insult to injury, strong south winds and a high swell, big waves, and a high astronomical tide, the combination of all of that could produce just that alone without the rain, but alone could create some street flooding along the coast there. So just bear that in mind. I mean, on top of the fact that we're going to be looking at heavy rainfall in that area as well. Now, you see the wave heights as we go through the day today, and especially tomorrow, they're getting higher. Now, there is a small craft advisory through this afternoon, but by this evening into tomorrow, a storm warning. This essentially just means the waves will be high, the winds will be strong. Not a good idea to be on a small boat, that's for sure. All right, so here's your Dignity Health neighborhood forecast. And there you can see Trinity County. Yeah, there it is. Thunderstorms for Wednesday, showers still on Thursday, especially in the afternoon, and then dry for Friday through the weekend. And that's the case down to the south as well. 50 degrees for a high today in Wildwood, Ruth about 58, as well as Hayfork. We take a look at your Dignity Health North Coast neighborhood forecast. Temperatures low 60s for Highway 101 there. There you can see a Honeydew about 57. Up north, about 62 degrees in Ferndale, 61 in Fortuna and Riodale, about 57 degrees up north. Trinidad, 64, as well as Hoopa, 65 in Willow Creek. It's that time of the year we start seeing less of a spread in the temperatures between the inland areas and the coast, because we got the overcast skies and we just don't see much warming there. And that cooler air is starting to kind of move on in. Your Dignity Health Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast, upper 50s for Highway 96, also upper 50s for I-5. For Scott Valley, mid-50s for your daytime highs there. We should be dry by the time we get into Friday through the weekend and early next week. And for central eastern Siskiyou County, there, of course, temperatures today will be in the low to mid-50s, 54 degrees for McDowell, about 50 degrees in Mount Shasta. And for Modoc County, you're talking about 53 in Newell, about 58 degrees for Alturas, California Pines, about 57, and Aden, 56 degrees today. And for your Eastern Mountains neighborhood forecast, temperatures generally in the mid-50s, although out towards Paynes Creek about 60, 56 degrees in Bernie. Lake Almanor, Lassen Park, well, for around the perimeter of the lake, upper 50s, and for the park, mid to upper 40s for those daytime highs today. Taking out of the south, Paradise, a high of 63 today, 58 degrees for Janesville, Susanville, 66, and 66 degrees for Doyle. All right, here's your Dignity Health Valley neighborhood forecast to the south. All right, temperatures somewhere in the upper 60s. Some of you could touch that 70-degree mark. Showers this morning, decreasing through the morning hours. chance. I don't think we're going to see a lot of activity for Corning southward through the day on Wednesday. And then better chance for some showers Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, dry for Friday through the weekend. So again, that's kind of the story here, looking at your 7-day forecast for Chico. It's also warming up, by the way. As you can see, low 70s for Saturday, Sunday, and that will continue into Monday of next week. All right, we take you up to the north, 60 degrees for Redding, 60 for Palo Cedro, 59 for the city of Shasta Lake, 61 in Cottonwood. I think showers here are going to be through a good portion of the morning. By the afternoon, most of these areas will be drying out by the time we get into around the 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's your 7-day forecast for Redding. More showers. And by the way, you'll notice I didn't have any really thunderstorms for Chico, but Redding has that potential. Remember that convergence line I was talking about? That is going to be that potential. Then we dry things out for Friday, low 70s throughout the weekend. Very nice indeed. All right, looks like kind of, okay, whew, thank you. Looks like sound had an issue, but everything's back. Whew, that was close. I cannot hear you now. Lost sound. Looks like got sound now, back now. Okay, all right. Whew. I mean, I always check. I always double check. There are two things that I have to check on my little board that I push here, little buttons. It responds. So when the microphone is on, it turns red. When the microphone is off, it turns blue. So I always check to make sure that that's red. But then I also have up on the camera here my receiver for my wireless microphone. Make sure that that's got sound as well. So something may have happened. I'm not sure. That's scary, though. I'm glad that it came back. Whew, man, oh man. Gotta love it. Well, thank you all for, of course, checking in and letting me know that you can't hear me, but then someone said it's back. We're all good now. It was a short outage. Just like, hopefully, any power outages, hopefully those are short as well. So, there you go. Let's take a look at another camera here. We're going to take a look at Elk Country, just north of Trinidad here this morning. And yeah, turning out to be kind of one of those overcast start to the day. Oh, it was right before the deep dive. Oh, I think I know what happened. I'll have to play around with it, but I do think I know what happened. Okay. Man, thank you. Thank you for letting me know when it was. I'll have to take a look at that. I think I know exactly what it was. I'm still kind of ironing out those kinks here, but at least we're getting closer. Glad to be back to Corning from Klamath, California from camp hosting. All right, camp hosting. Well, that's fun. We always love those camp hosts, don't we? They're always so helpful. Hearing aid fixed it. Yes, that's what Lisa Stevens said. Of course, as you know, that's one of our newer sponsors right now. And so you couldn't hear me before the hearing aid ad, but then the hearing aid ad came on and then you could hear me. So thanks to Shasta Hearing Aids for allowing us all to hear that, I guess. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this morning, folks. Thank you all so much for checking in this morning, for watching. I certainly appreciate it. I always appreciate all of your viewership. It is much, much appreciated. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some cameras here to wrap up the show. In the meantime, have yourselves a great day and keep checking in with Weather NorCal. By the way, as you know, there's a free Weather NorCal app. There's a 24-hour streaming channel if you're not already watching on it already. You can access it on weathernorcal.com. All kinds of great ways for you to stay up to speed with the forecast with Weather NorCal on the website, the app, the 24-hour streaming channel, and, of course, on social media. Have yourselves a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow morning right here on Coffee with Krueger at 6:30.